Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Welcome to our webinar introducing Sentry, our two-factor authentication extension for Magento. Sentry was developed jointly by Human Element and Nexus, and it provides two-factor authentication using a variety of services. Currently, it's pre-configured to work with both Duo Security and Google Authenticator, and we have a representative from Duo here today to talk to you as well about two-factor authentication. I'm Kara Heinrichs. I'm an e-commerce consultant working with Human Element, and I'll be just taking care of some of the housekeeping at the beginning and end of the webinar, so you'll hear me again at the end. First bit of housekeeping is that sound check. So if you don't hear me, then you couldn't possibly tell me, but we'll go ahead and let you know that we'll be monitoring the chat window down in that lower right-hand section of the GoToWebinar control panel during the course of the webinar. So if anything goes wonky or if you have questions throughout the webinar, type them in there. We'll gather them up for the end and try to address them all together. So next bit of housekeeping, because people always ask, is that, yes, in fact, we are recording this. So after the webinar, you'll be able to see it again or share it. Give us about a day, typically, to encode it and upload it and get all those kind of details taken care of. And then that'll be available for later consumption and reconsumption, because I know you'll want to see it again. So what I'd like to do first, then, to kick this off, is to introduce our speakers for today. And so first up, you'll be meeting Chris Wells. Chris is the CEO and founder of Nexus, and Nexus is a Magento Platinum hosting partner. They've been involved with Magento products and services since the beginning and have grown to be one of the largest Magento hosting providers, hosting over 30,000 Magento sites, which is just an astonishing number to me. They focus on really pushing the envelope on performance and offer Magento-optimized platforms for clients of all sizes, so you should definitely check them out. So Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
Next, you'll be hearing from Patrick Garrity. Patrick is the Director of Solutions Engineering at Duo Security. Duo is one of the premier two-factor hosting authentication providers, maybe the premier two-factor authentication hosting provider. And we're super excited to have Duo as part of the Sentry solution because of their deep experience in IT security generally and then two-factor authentication specifically. The Duo solution is powerful and it's innovative and it's still easy to deploy and use. And I think you'll get a little bit of a taste of that today, and I'm sure Patrick will be willing to fill you in more if you ever want to know. So Patrick, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Finally, Greg Crosdell from Human Element will be demoing Sentry for you. Greg is the CTO at Human Element and the primary architect of the Sentry module. Human Element is a Magento Silver Solutions partner who's also been involved with Magento since the very beginning, and over the years has worked with well over 100 Magento websites and stores. Human Element works with both B2B and B2C sites, and we especially specialize in working with clients who need custom or complex integrations to back-end systems, ERP, OMS, and external external service providers. So Greg, welcome.
Thank you.
So in today's webinar, Chris, Patrick, and Greg will be walking you through the Magento security landscape, what two-factor authentication is and how it fits in, and then finally demoing the Sentry extension for you so you can see how easy it is to set up and use. We'll try to leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A, so again, remember to use that chat window. Send us any questions you have as we go along, and then we'll just batch them up at the end there and try to get to them, as many of them as possible. Sound good?
Great.
All right, great. Then, with all that in mind, I'd like to go ahead and just turn the mic over to Chris to kick us off.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I want to start off today just by speaking briefly about PCI. Whenever we talk about security and as it pertains to Magento, often PCI comes up. PCI is one of the most talked about and least understood things in terms of security as it pertains to e-commerce and Magento, and we are constantly making sure, obviously, that our environment is PCI compliant, but there's a line whereby we have to straddle what is in fact in scope for us and what is in scope for the client. So that's where we looked at originally when we thought about doing a two-factor solution. And you have to look at the PCI standard itself to kind of understand where we were coming from. So the current standard suggests one login per user, and we often see in our operational sense that our clients are sharing, users are sharing passwords for that matter, are having simple passwords, ultimately are just not following standard security practices. So we were we're always looking for ways to help clients, be more secure by default. So often we'll get tickets, for instance, that are, can you help me? And of course we can help. And when we ask for credentials or require credentials, they'll come in a generic format, meaning they'll be the shared credentials of all behind the scenes. And we've been pushing folks to create accounts for us specifically to help in terms of being able to facilitate. And the two-factor is kind of helping us push along a process, a structure that makes that happen. Beyond bad passwords and beyond shared credentials, this is where PCI DSS version 3 and the user themselves are going to collide, because PCI DSS v3 is mandating two-factor for things like the Magento admin. That will be in scope, and a plugin like Sentry will be required for folks in PCI DSS v3 land. So again, that's where we're coming from an operational sense. The two-factor is necessary for many reasons, which Patrick will talk about, and I'll let him do that. But from an operational side, it's a structure that makes sense, the process that should be adhered to, and it's something we're hopefully making it easy by making this free extension available to all, like we did in the Turpentine for Performance landscape. So with that, I'll pass it off to Patrick.
Great, thanks, Chris. So I work a lot in the security space, being a security vendor, predominantly around authentication. And what we're seeing these days is an increase in breaches, right? Year after year, they continue to increase. And probably the most common thing people are going for are identities, or places where there's things of value, monetary. So the fact of the matter is, of these breaches, the most common way people are getting in any of these breaches, there's some form of a stolen credential involved. So people are getting usernames and passwords, and we see this through many of the different instances you can read in publications across the board and in the news. There's more and more targeted attacks against credit card environments. So in the U.S. retail industry alone, if we look just at 2013, there was approximately $18 billion in credit card fraud, and that continues to increase. And so this is a combination of e-commerce, retail, at the kiosks, things of that nature. But it's across the board, and the fact of the matter is anything that's online is certainly an easier target to go after. So a simple way to help mitigate a lot of the risk associated with this is with two-factor authentication. And this is pointed out in a lot of the breach reports. One of them specifically, Verizon, recommends this as a top control. So it's a great way to fend off bad guys and prevent them from getting access to your environments. So what two-factor authentication is it's using a combination of something which is commonly your username and password that you would log into Magento for today, and then using something additional that a person has to validate their identity. In our case, most commonly, it's a phone. So it can be a smartphone, landline, and we'll get into some other options as well. But once you validate that you both know the username and password and have the device, you're logged into the service. And it protects from anybody else being able to gain access to that. So like Chris mentioned before, there's a lot of compliance requirements around two-factor authentication as well. And when we're talking about financials, access to PCI type data, it's both recommended and starting to be required if you look at FFIEC as well as PCI DSS. So it's not just a recommended control like it was in former PCI DSS, I think 2.0, but now in 3.0, it's actually something that's being mandated in order to be compliant. So two-factor authentication, one of the reasons you haven't seen a lot in the past is probably because it's been really challenging to deploy. So users had to carry around a token, for instance, and it was a poor end-user experience. And it was inflexible, right? I'd have to get multiple devices. I might lose that device, something separate that I have to carry. And the other thing is it's been pretty expensive. If you look a few years back, the only solutions out there, you would have to pay thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands, just to deploy in any type of environment. So with Duo, we're focused on making it easy and extensible for all. Just so everyone knows, commonly in Magento, you might only have a few admins you can sign up for a trial and try our service out for free, and it's free for up to 10 users always. And so how it works is user goes to log in, and there's a few different options. The first on the left you see is a smartphone with push-based authentication, which we'll demo for you today. You simply tap the approve button, green button, and it logs you into the service. Offline on a smartphone, you can also generate a one-time passcode if, for instance, you're on an airplane traveling or international. And that smartphone app is supported on BlackBerry, Windows Mobile, Android, and iPhone. We also support, for users not with smartphones, capability to do a text message. And then lastly, a phone call to a device, and that can even be a device, a phone with extension. So it can be a landline too. And then we do support more legacy options like a hardware token, or there's a YubiKey, for example, which is a security key you can plug into a USB port. So the idea is make it as flexible and easy as possible. And we'll show you today with the plugin, we're able to get Duo up and running in a matter of minutes from the starting of setting up your account to provisioning. So you know, high level, keep it simple, keep it easy for the end user, make provisioning easy, and very simple to turn up the service, and it's cost effective and even free for up to 10 users. So you can use our personal edition for up to 10 users free with this integration we're talking about today. And then if you need to scale up your organization, we have additional options, business and enterprise edition, that give you more advanced features sets for management, deployment, self-service capabilities, and more contextual authentication, like being able to trust the device for a certain period of time. So I'll pass it over to Greg, and he's going to provide a demo of the Sentry plugin for Magento.
Okay. So hi there. So what is Sentry? Sentry is a Magento extension that we've developed that implements multiple styles of two-factor authentication. This module is based off of some Magento hackathon code, kind of as initial concept, and then we took it all the way through to a complete professional solution. We use the best coding practices, and we work together with Nexus to develop this. What are your benefits here? It's really easy to set up. We can install. You install this module just as you would for any Magento Connect module. Once it's installed, you log into admin and you configure it for the authenticator you're going to use, either for Duo or for Google Authenticator. And then it's automatically going to register all of the admin users you have set up. In addition, we've also added logging at the module level, so you can see when anyone is trying to log in. It'll log their IP address, it'll log attempts, it'll log failures. So you can look at the log file until someone has been trying to penetrate your site. And best of all, this extension is free. It's open source. If you want to take it and add more authenticators to it, you certainly can. It's very easy to do. So now we're going to go into the demo. I'm going to go through showing logging in with Duo, logging in with Google Authenticator, walk through really quick showing you the configuration options, and talk about what happens if anything goes wrong, so you lock yourself out. So let's see, so there's option tab. Okay. Oops. So let's bring up, did not bring up the window. There it is. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this. This is your typical Magento admin panel. I'm going to try to log in here just as the regular old administration user. So this usually would be your one step. You'd put your username and your password in, hit login, and you'd be an admin. But with two-factor authentication, what's going to happen now is that it's going to pop up this dialog and ask you to complete two-factor authentication before getting into Magento. So this is the Duo two-factor authenticator. You can see I've got an iOS device set up here. And now let me bring up reflector, which is going to show my phone. Oh, hopefully. Sorry about this. Still, oh, there we go. Now you can all see the screen on my phone. Put that over here. Now when I say I want to do a Duo push, and I click log me in, my phone gets a message. And here's the second factor. This is Duo saying, do I approve this login? If it wasn't me logging in, I'd press deny. But since this is me logging in, I'm going to press approve. Immediately, the second factor is authenticated, and I get into Magento. So setting up new users is also very easy. This is the admin user. I have another user that has not yet gone through registration with Duo, so I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log in as that user. So here it says, this user is not yet registered. The Duo, one of the reasons we really like the Duo solution is that there's multiple modes that Duo can work in. I have it set up in a more permissive manner right now because this user isn't registered yet with Duo. It's going to walk me through a registration process. I could also lock it down, so if this user wasn't registered, they couldn't get in without an administrator logging into Duo's admin panel and saying this is a valid user. So you can tighten the security down a lot with the Duo solution. But in this case, I'm going to walk through registration. It's going to ask me, oh, okay, what type of device? It's going to be your second factor. In this case, I'm going to pick landline. I'm going to use the phone here in the conference room. And that phone number is 4-585. It asks me to double check. I say OK, continue. I verify that. Now it's going to walk me through using a landline, giving a phone call. All it's going to do is going to call this phone. It's going to ask me to press a key. Oh, the phone is ringing.
Welcome to the Sentry demo site. If you were not expecting this, thank you. Goodbye.
I pressed a key on the keypad, and immediately Duo knew that I had authenticated with the second factor, and now I'm logged into Magento. One other, oops, get back in here. So I'm going to real quick go over here to the Sentry configuration screen. And I'm going to change the authenticator from Duo to Google Authenticator. Google Authenticator is a much simpler solution than Duo. It just simply has an app that works like a dongle on your computer, sorry, on your phone, and just provides a one-time use access code. So if I come back over here, save config, never. Sorry. So Magento is saving that. And then I will log out. And this time when I try to log in, it's asking me for a security code, and that comes from, oops. You've seen all the junk on my phone. This 802.547. And it's just as simple as that, to use Authenticator. What Authenticator doesn't give you is that control, and if for some reason you leave your phone at home, you don't have any one-time use codes that you would get from Duo. You don't have an option to use a landline or some other mechanism for authenticating. But it works just fine. Let me pop back into the configuration for Sentry. Move this out of the way. Actually, let's just make that go away. I don't need that anymore. Okay. So we've got some instructions and some help links up here on the top. If you have a bug, you can submit a bug. When Sentry first gets installed, it's going to come up and it's going to be disabled. And if any time you want to turn off two-factor authentication on your site for some reason, you can always select disabled here and save it, and it won't use two-factor anymore. But if you check Duo, this panel opens down here. These are the settings you'll need to get from the Duo administration control panel for how to set up the integration. Once you type in all these keys, all this information, and save it, it's going to go and test and make sure you've entered all that data correctly, and it's going to say valid down here. If it doesn't validate, then the second factor is not going to kick in, and it's not going to lock your site up. If you choose to configure with Google Authenticator, there are no configuration settings back here. It's just simply going to walk you through a registration the first time you use it, and it's going to save the key in the Magento database for your user. So up here, when you first install Sentry, also the access logging is turned on. This is where I was saying earlier, it's going to log all the attempts to log into Magento to a log file on your Magento installation. So you can see who's accessing, who's trying to break in. You can turn that off if you want to. I suggest leaving it on. It's really good to have that information. And if anything ever is going wrong, you can also turn on debugging, and so that'll write a debug log, so we can help you get whatever problem is with your site figured out. Let's see, is there anything else I was going to cover in here? I think that's about it for now. So that's pretty much a tour of the Sentry two-factor module. Let's get back over to PowerPoint. One more thing, if things go wrong, in some of our testing scenarios, we did have a point where we were able to get Sentry configured. It would throw up the second factor, but still there was something wrong, so it wasn't actually allowing you to log in. And it'd be a real pain if you were locked out of your admin and you weren't able to turn off your second factor. So we put in a mechanism very similar to Magento's maintenance flag. There is a specific file you can put in the Magento root file there, and it'll turn off the second factor temporarily so that you can log into admin with just your regular username and your password, and then deal with whatever configuration issue came up in Sentry, and then turn it back on by removing the file. We've tested Sentry with versions of Magento Community and Enterprise from 1.6 to 1.9 in Community, and 1.11 to 1.14 in Enterprise. It may work with other versions, but we've not tested it. For the second factor device, let's see, Duo and Google Authenticator work with Android, iOS, Windows Phone, BlackBerry, and Duo in addition adds the landline, SMS text messages, tokens, key fobs, etc. So that's about it. I guess we're ready to move on to questions.
Yeah, so. So thanks, guys. And I'm just looking to see if there were any additional questions as we were going through. Feel free to go ahead and type into the question or the chat windows, and we can pick those up. A couple of questions that we did have from you all as we went through is, one question, guys, was, does this only protect admin users, or can you use it for your customers or your front-end users as well?
At this time, it only protects the admin, and it doesn't even go as far at this point as protecting the Magento Connect downloader. It only protects that admin login. We would like to, in the long run, take it out to also protect the downloader, and if possible, we could talk about protecting front-end users as well. But at this point, it doesn't do it.
All right, sounds good. And somebody was asked if they can turn it on for just some admin users, like their CEO would never use it. Can they?
I think with the Duo Enterprise solution, you can whitelist certain users. You can also whitelist them for certain IP addresses. We are looking at adding this to the module, to the Sentry extension itself, but right now it's not implemented. That is one of the feature requests we've heard.
And then let's see, another question that we've gotten in the past is just a little bit more, what's the difference between Duo and Google Authenticator really? I mean, is there, make it a jump ball to any of you, but why would somebody pick one versus the other? Or could they use both, or is it all or nothing?
Yeah, with the extension, it's you can use one or the other. Yeah. So yeah, big benefit. I mean, I have a lot of customers that look at both technologies. A big thing is the breadth of the capabilities we have. So you have a way to get into the service at any time. So I can do a phone call. I can use a smartphone. I can use any of these different ways or multiple of these ways to get into a service. So as far as flexibility and reliability, that's a strong reason. The other reason is as you scale up, the management component of it, Google Authenticator is a single auth option. So you can think of it as one of the many components of Duo. But we're essentially a security platform that can be used for two-factor authentication for management, deployment, and not only your Magento applications, but also anything on the enterprise side. So we pride ourselves in integrating with just about anything with a login. And this is it's great that you guys did this because this is an extension of our capabilities at Duo. So thank you.
All right, great. So it looks like you've answered just in the course of the webinar most people's questions that we have here. Just those couple that were out. A few people mentioned the downloader, Greg.
Yeah.
So that appears to be an ongoing area of concern.
Yeah, it's a huge area of weakness right now in Magento. There are new attacks happening all the time coming into the downloader. And at this point, we actually, just this week, we went through and we're removing the downloader from all of our customer sites that still had it. So.
Right, but that's separate from the Sentry extension for now. Okay. So more to come, folks.
We understand the need for that.
All right. Well, you guys have blasted through this really quickly, but it seems like it's been pretty clear. And because everybody's time is so valuable, let's go ahead and wrap up a little bit early and let you know that if you want to download Sentry, obviously, whenever you're installing a new extension, we don't need to tell you to always do it in a dev environment first to give it a test drive. But coming soon to Magento Connect, it's still going through the process there, so look for it there soonish. We can't predict. But in the meanwhile, you can always go to humanelement.com/Sentry extension and download it directly from our website, and you'll just get the standard tarball that you can have your developers look at, open up, and install. And if you still have any questions, you can go ahead and contact us at contact@humanelement.com, and also through Nexus, through their support forums. If you're a Nexus customer, they'll be able to help you with this as well. At the Sentry extension webpage there, you'll also find some documentation and more information about setting up and installing it, so you can dig into it a little bit more than what we've gone into here at this webinar. So I guess with that, I thank you all for attending, and I thank our panelists for participating. And let us know if you use it, let us know if you like it, and how it's working for you. Thanks all.